The elderly woman didn't flinch when the head of security grabbed her arm.
Your mother didn't abandon you. She saved you.
How do you know this?
Instead, she looked past him, straight at the billionaire standing beneath the mansion's grand entrance, and raised an old leather sewing case as if it weighed nothing at all. "You can throw me into the rain if you want," she called, her voice steady despite the storm. "But if you send me away tonight, Adrian Ashcroft, you'll never learn why your mother disappeared." The words hit harder than the thunder. Every guard froze. Adrian's expression hardened. "My mother died 30 years ago." The woman slowly shook her head. "No," she replied. She made sure everyone believed she had. Lightning split the sky as silence swallowed the courtyard. If that sentence made your heart skip the way it would have for Adrian, subscribe now and stay with this story until the end, because nothing about that rainy night was what it seemed. No one had spoken Evelyn Ashcroft's name in that house for years. Adrian had forbidden it after discovering, as a teenager, that every conversation about his mother ended with pity, rumors, or uncomfortable silence. The official story never changed. His father had died in a boating accident. His grieving mother had abandoned him a few months later before vanishing forever. The family empire had been kept alive by loyal executives until Adrian was old enough to inherit it. That version of history had shaped every decision of his life. Now an elderly stranger stood in front of his mansion claiming the biggest part of it was a lie. "Search her bag," Adrian ordered. One guard opened the worn leather case. There was no weapon. No money. Only neatly folded fabric, tiny silver scissors polished from decades of use, several spools of faded thread, and an envelope sealed with dark blue wax. The guard looked confused. "Sir, that's all." The woman smiled faintly. "I told you I came to keep a promise. Not to start a fight." Adrian stepped closer. "Who are you?" "My name is Eleanor Whitmore." "That means nothing to me." It wasn't supposed to. Rain soaked her gray coat, but she didn't shiver. "It would have meant everything to your mother." His jaw tightened. "You have 30 seconds. She looked at the windows of the mansion instead of him. "I won't explain this in the rain." Security expected Adrian to send her away. Instead, something unusual happened. He looked at the envelope. The wax seal carried the image of a tiny white lily. His breathing stopped for a moment. His mother used to draw white lilies in every birthday card she gave him before she disappeared. He had never told anyone that. Not even his closest friends. "Let her inside," he said quietly. The security chief stared at him. "Sir. You heard me." The guards reluctantly stepped aside. As Eleanor walked through the enormous entrance hall, she didn't admire the marble floors or priceless paintings. She looked toward an old grandfather clock standing in the corner. "It still runs 7 minutes slow," she whispered. Adrian stopped walking. "How did you know that?" She smiled sadly. "Because your mother refused to let anyone repair it." He frowned. "It was repaired years ago." "No." She pointed toward the pendulum. "They fixed the gears. They never fixed the heart." Without touching it, she reached behind the wooden frame. Her fingers found a tiny brass lever hidden where no ordinary visitor would ever think to look. Click. The clock chimed. Its hands moved forward exactly 7 minutes. The butler gasped. "I've worked here 22 years, he whispered. "I never knew that latch existed." Neither had Adrian. For the first time that evening, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Not fear of the woman. Fear that she might actually be telling the truth. He led her into the library. "Sit." She remained standing. "I'll stand. My knees are old, but my promise is older." "You keep mentioning promises." "I intend to." He folded his arms. Then start talking. She looked around the room until her eyes landed on a framed photograph resting beside the fireplace. A little boy. About 6 years old. Standing beside a smiling woman. Evelyn Ashcroft. Eleanor slowly walked toward it. Her fingers trembled. They used the wrong photograph. Adrian's eyes narrowed. What? Your mother hated that dress. Silence. She only wore it because your grandmother insisted. His voice became colder. You could have read that somewhere. No. Eleanor looked directly into his eyes. I stitched the hem after she tore it climbing over the garden wall. The room felt smaller. Adrian remembered that dress. Not because he remembered the day. Because he still owned it. Preserved inside a climate-controlled archive upstairs with other family belongings. No one outside the family had ever seen it. His pulse quickened. Who told you that? Your mother. When? The day before she vanished. Those words echoed through the room like another clap of thunder. Before Adrian could respond, the library doors opened. Damien Cross entered without knocking. Chairman of Ashcroft Holdings. Trusted advisor. The closest thing Adrian had ever had to family. Damien smiled politely. I heard there was an unexpected visitor. His smile disappeared the instant he saw Eleanor. She recognized him too. For one brief second. Neither spoke. Neither breathed. Then Damien recovered. I don't believe we've met. Eleanor answered before Adrian could. You're a much better liar than you were 30 years ago. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Damien laughed awkwardly. I'm afraid you're mistaken. No. She stared straight into him. I never forget the face of a man who watched an innocent woman cry. Adrian looked between them. You know each other? Damien answered too quickly. Absolutely not. Eleanor quietly said. That's strange. You knew my name before you walked into this room. Damien froze. Only for a heartbeat. But Adrian saw it. Just enough. Just long enough. A tiny crack appeared in the perfect image of the man he had trusted for decades. Damien forced another smile. Security must have mentioned it. They didn't. Nobody spoke. The silence became louder than the storm outside. Finally Damien cleared his throat. Adrian, she's manipulating you. Eleanor nodded slowly. That's exactly what they used to say about your mother. Adrian slammed one hand onto the table. Enough. Both of them looked at him. I want facts. No stories. No riddles. If either of you lies to me tonight, you'll walk out that door forever. Eleanor carefully placed the sealed envelope onto the desk between them. I've waited 30 years to hand this to you. Adrian reached for it. Damien's voice suddenly rose. Don't open that. It was the first time Adrian had ever heard panic in the older man's voice. He looked up. Why not? Damien swallowed. It could be forged. Eleanor smiled with heartbreaking calm. It could. She slid the envelope closer. But ask yourself one question. If it's only a forgery, why is he so afraid of what's inside? Adrian's fingers rested on the faded paper. The wax seal felt cold. Outside, lightning flashed again. Inside, the man he trusted most suddenly looked more frightened than the woman who had walked through a storm to reach him. Adrian broke the seal. The first thing he saw wasn't a letter. It was an old black and white photograph. His hands began to shake. The woman in the picture was unmistakably his mother. Standing beside Eleanor. And beside them, a much younger Damien Cross. But someone had tried to cut Damien out of the photograph with a pair of scissors. Only they hadn't cut carefully enough. Part of his face was still visible. Adrian slowly lifted his eyes. Damien had turned completely pale. And before anyone could speak, every light in the mansion went dark. Adrian stood frozen in the darkness, still holding the damaged photograph in his hand. For several seconds, nobody moved. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the mansion, the silence felt heavier than the thunder. Then the emergency lights flickered on. Dim red lights filled the library. And Damien Cross was gone. The chair where he had been standing moments earlier was empty. Adrian looked toward the door. Where did he go? No one answered. The security chief immediately touched his earpiece. Lock down the property. Eleanor didn't look surprised. That was what frightened Adrian the most. You knew he would run. She slowly looked at him. I knew he would be afraid. That's not the same thing. No. Her eyes moved toward the photograph. But fear makes people reveal what they spend years hiding. Adrian stared at the picture again. His mother. Eleanor. Damien. 3 people connected by a secret that had survived 3 decades. Explain. Eleanor sat down this time. The strength she had carried at the gate seemed to fade slightly. I was 20 years younger when your mother hired me. Adrian listened carefully. She didn't hire me because I was the best seamstress in the city. She hired me because I knew how to keep quiet. She touched the edge of the photograph. Your mother was surrounded by people who smiled at her while waiting for her to fail. Adrian frowned. My mother was loved. Eleanor looked at him sadly. She was admired. A pause. But admiration and love are not the same thing. Those words stayed in the air. She explained that Adrian Ashcroft had discovered something hidden inside her own company. For years, money had been disappearing through fake investments and secret accounts. At first, she believed it was an accounting mistake. Then she found a pattern. Every missing dollar led back to people close to the family. People who attended birthdays. People who sat at their dinner table. People Adrian had grown up trusting. She went to your father, Eleanor said. And? Your father promised he would fix everything. Adrian swallowed. Then why didn't he? Eleanor looked down. Because he never got the chance. The room went quiet. Adrian had spent his entire life believing his father died because of a tragic accident. Everyone had told him that. The newspapers. The lawyers. The executives. Even Damien. What are you saying? I'm saying your father's death wasn't the beginning of the tragedy. She looked at him. It was the warning. Adrian stepped back. No. The word came out immediately. Almost like he needed to reject it before he understood it. My father died in an accident. Eleanor shook her head. That is the story they gave you. Who? She didn't answer immediately. And that hesitation hurt more than the answer. Everyone who benefited from you believing it. Adrian turned away. His entire identity was built on control. Numbers. Facts. Evidence. Not memories from strangers. Where is proof? Eleanor reached into her sewing case. She removed a small piece of fabric. At first, Adrian thought it was just another piece of cloth. Then he noticed the stitching. A pattern. Tiny blue threads forming a series of numbers. My mother taught me embroidery, Eleanor said. She used it when she needed to hide messages. Adrian stared. Messages? Your mother knew someone was watching her. She placed the fabric on the table. She couldn't write letters. She couldn't send emails. She couldn't trust phones. So she hid information in clothes. Not clothes. Eleanor looked toward the photograph. Memories. She explained that Evelyn had created a system. Every stitch represented something. A date. A location. A name. A warning. Adrian picked up the fabric. What does this say? Eleanor's voice lowered. It says she knew she was running out of time. A chill moved through him. Then his phone rang. Everyone looked at the screen. Unknown number. Adrian answered. No one spoke. Only breathing. Then an older recording played. His mother's voice. A voice he had not heard since childhood. Adrian, if you're hearing this, something happened to me. His face changed instantly. His knees almost gave out. The room disappeared. For a moment, he wasn't a billionaire. He was a little boy hearing his mother's voice again. The recording continued. I need you to understand something. I never left you. Adrian covered his mouth. Eleanor closed her eyes. Someone will tell you that I abandoned you. They will tell you I chose to disappear. A pause. But I chose you every single day. Adrian couldn't breathe. Then the recording ended. No goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. He looked at Eleanor. Where did you get this? She didn't answer. That was when he noticed something. The phone wasn't his. It was sitting on the table. Someone had placed it there before the lights came back on. Someone who had access to the mansion. Someone who knew exactly what Adrian needed to hear. The security chief rushed in. Sir. Adrian turned. What? We found Damien's car. Where? At the east gate. And? The guard hesitated. He's gone. Adrian stared. He couldn't leave. Every exit was locked. The guard looked uncomfortable. Sir. What? The cameras were disabled. A cold feeling moved through the room. How long? Exactly 11 minutes. The same 11 minutes when the power failed. Adrian looked toward Eleanor. Did Damien know you were coming? She didn't answer. That answer was enough. You knew. I suspected. You suspected. His voice rose. You walked into my house knowing the man who controls my company might try to erase evidence. Eleanor stood slowly. I walked into your house because I knew if I didn't, you would spend the rest of your life believing a lie. Adrian turned away. The anger was covering something deeper. Pain. Because somewhere inside him, a part of him believed her. And that terrified him. The next morning, Adrian did something nobody expected. He canceled every meeting. Every interview. Every business commitment. He went into the old family archive. A room he had avoided for years. Eleanor followed him. Inside were thousands of documents. Photos. Letters. Personal belongings. Everything his family had left behind. I never understood why my mother kept this room locked, Adrian whispered. Eleanor looked at the door. Because she was afraid someone would find what was hidden inside. They searched for hours. Then Adrian noticed something. A dress hanging inside a protective glass case. The same dress from the photograph. The one Eleanor said she repaired. He unlocked the case. His hands trembled. Near the bottom of the dress was a line of blue stitching. The same pattern. The same hidden language. Eleanor leaned closer. Then her expression changed. What? She didn't answer. She touched the stitching carefully. No. Adrian looked at her. What does it say? Her face had lost all color. Your mother wasn't hiding evidence of who betrayed her. Then what was she hiding? Eleanor looked up. Her voice barely came out. She was hiding the name of the person who saved you. Adrian stared. Save me from what? Before Eleanor could answer, the archive door suddenly slammed shut. The lock clicked. Someone was outside. Adrian rushed to the handle. Open this door. No response. Then smoke began drifting underneath the door. Eleanor grabbed Adrian's arm. Someone knows we found it. Adrian looked at the hidden message one more time. Because the final stitched word was finally visible. And it wasn't a person's name. It was a warning. Run. Adrian stared at the word stitched into the fabric. Run. One simple word. One terrifying message. For 30 years, he had believed his family history was a tragedy. A father lost. A mother who disappeared. A child left behind. But now he was beginning to understand something far worse. Someone had spent decades making sure he never discovered the truth. The smoke outside the archive door grew thicker. Eleanor grabbed the old fire extinguisher hanging beside the wall and pointed toward the corner of the room. Your mother built this archive for emergencies. Adrian looked at her. How do you know that? Because she showed me the exit. He froze. The exit? Eleanor walked toward a wooden bookshelf filled with old family records. She pressed her hand against the side panel. Nothing happened. Then she pushed harder. A hidden mechanism clicked. The bookshelf slowly moved. Behind it was a narrow passage. Adrian stared. My entire life. He looked into the darkness. And this was here the whole time. Eleanor nodded. Your mother believed secrets should never be destroyed. They should be protected until the right person was ready to find them. They stepped into the passage just as the archive door cracked open behind them. Someone entered. But they were already gone. The hidden tunnel led beneath the mansion. At the end was a small room. Not a vault. Not a storage area. A workshop. Adrian stopped. Inside were dozens of unfinished dresses, old sewing tools, and handwritten notes. It was his mother's private room. A place no one knew existed. Eleanor walked slowly inside. Her eyes filled with tears. She spent her final days here. Adrian looked around. Final days? Eleanor hesitated. That hesitation told him everything. You said she disappeared. Because that is what she wanted people to believe. Adrian's voice became quiet. Where was she? Eleanor reached for a small wooden box. Inside was a letter. The paper was aged. The handwriting was unmistakable. His mother's handwriting. Adrian refused to touch it. For the first time in years, the billionaire who negotiated billion-dollar deals was afraid of a single piece of paper. Open it. Eleanor nodded. She wrote it for you. His hands shook as he unfolded the letter. The words were short. Simple. But they carried 30 years of pain. She explained that she discovered Damien Cross had been stealing from the company long before he became its chairman. She discovered he wasn't working alone. Several powerful people were involved. When her husband found out, they tried to silence him. Then they turned their attention to her. She knew they would come after Adrian next. So she made the hardest decision of her life. She disappeared. Not because she stopped loving him. Because she loved him enough to leave. At the bottom of the letter was one final sentence. If my son grows up believing I abandoned him, I will accept that pain. A living son with a broken heart is better than a dead son with the truth. Adrian lowered the letter. For years, he had carried anger toward a woman who had never stopped protecting him. His eyes filled. "I hated her," Eleanor quietly replied. "She knew you might." "How could she?" "Because she was a mother." The room became silent. Then Adrian noticed another document inside the box. A legal agreement. He picked it up. His expression changed. "What is this?" Eleanor looked. Then she went completely still. "No." "What?" She stepped closer. "This isn't possible." Adrian read the document again. It was a transfer agreement. Signed 30 years earlier. His father had secretly moved ownership of several company assets away from the Ashcroft Corporation. Not into a bank account. Not into another company. Into a trust. A trust created for one person. Eleanor Whitmore. Adrian looked confused. Why would my father put assets in her name? Eleanor's eyes widened. Because he knew she was the only person he could trust. Adrian stared. The woman who arrived at his mansion with nothing. Had secretly protected a fortune for 3 decades. But Eleanor shook her head. "I never wanted the money." "Then why keep it?" "Because your father asked me to keep something safe." "What?" She pointed toward the documents. "The evidence." Everything suddenly connected. The missing records. The hidden messages. The destroyed files. Damien wasn't trying to steal an inheritance. He was trying to destroy proof. Adrian immediately called his legal team. But before he could explain, his phone received a message. A video. From Damien. Adrian opened it. Damien was sitting inside an empty office. For the first time, the perfect businessman was gone. Only desperation remained. "Adrian." He looked directly into the camera. "I know what Eleanor told you." Adrian watched silently. "I know what you found." Damien leaned closer. "But there is something she never told you." Eleanor's face changed. "Turn it off." Adrian looked at her. "What does he mean?" The video continued. "Your mother wasn't the only person who disappeared that night." Adrian froze. Damien smiled sadly. "Ask Eleanor what happened to the person who helped your mother escape." The screen went black. Adrian turned slowly. "Eleanor." She looked away. That was the first time she had looked afraid. Not worried. Not cautious. Afraid. "Who helped my mother?" No answer. "Eleanor." She closed her eyes. "The person who helped your mother was someone you knew." Adrian felt his stomach tighten. "Who?" Before she could respond, another sound came from outside. Cars. Multiple cars. The security system alerted. Someone had entered the property. Adrian moved toward the window. A line of vehicles stopped outside the mansion. Police. Lawyers. Journalists. And at the front. Damien Cross. Alive. Standing outside. Adrian turned back. "How did he get here?" Eleanor whispered. "Because he doesn't think he's lost." The mansion doors opened. Damien walked inside surrounded by lawyers. He looked calm again. Confident. Almost victorious. "Adrian." The billionaire stared at the man who had been like a father figure. "You lied to me for 30 years. Damien sighed. "No." He looked at Eleanor. "She lied to you." Everyone went silent. Then Damien placed a folder on the table. "I have proof." Adrian didn't move. "What proof?" Damien opened the folder. Inside was an old photograph. Another photograph. One Adrian had never seen. His mother, Eleanor. And a third person standing between them. Someone whose face had never appeared in any family record. Damien looked at Adrian. Before you destroy my life, you need to know who your mother was really running from. Adrian stared at the photograph. Because the person standing beside his mother was someone he had trusted his entire life. And that was when he realized the truth. The biggest betrayal wasn't that someone had lied about his family. The biggest betrayal was that the person who knew the truth had been standing beside him all along. Months later, Adrian would understand that wealth could build companies, buy buildings, and change markets. But it could never replace the one thing he spent his entire life searching for. The truth. After everything was exposed, Damien Cross was removed from Ashcroft Holdings, and the decades of hidden financial crimes were finally brought into the light. But Adrian did not celebrate. He didn't throw a party. He didn't seek revenge. Instead, he restored the old workshop hidden beneath his mansion. The same room where his mother had protected him. The same room where Eleanor had carried a promise for 30 years. He turned it into a place where women who had lost everything could learn a skill, rebuild their lives, and create a future. When reporters asked why he chose that instead of building another billion-dollar project, Adrian gave them a simple answer. Because my mother taught me something. Money can protect a legacy. But kindness is what creates one. Eleanor lived long enough to see the workshop filled with laughter again. And every year, on the night of the storm that changed everything, Adrian returned to the mansion gates. Not because he expected another mystery, but because he remembered the woman who arrived with nothing and gave him back everything. If this story reminded you that the people who quietly protect us can sometimes be the greatest treasures in our lives, make sure to subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Like the video if you believe truth always finds its way home, and comment below. Would you have forgiven someone who protected you by hiding the truth for 30 years?